With our agenda here was a copy of our minutes from December 2nd. Were there any edits or revisions that we'd like made to those minutes? If not, I can go ahead and entertain a motion.
Has anybody said anything? Because I can't hear anything.
Oh.
I can hear it.
Okay, maybe. I unmuted me, maybe that was.
Okay, can you hear us now, Latanya?
Now I can, yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for sticking with us. We had some last minute changes. Going forward, we will be meeting in person so everyone knows, and the chair will be here in person as well. So if you'd like to be here, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, virtual is always an option for you too. So we went ahead and called the meeting to order at 3:34. Attached to the packet was our minutes from December 2nd of last year. Was there any edits or revisions? If not, we can go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Perfect. Motion by Latanya, seconded by Tom. Moving on to our agenda items here. So we have an update on the conversion therapy ban policy. So dispute updates on this. Since our committee approved the policy, it was sent on to our city's attorney office. And Jacobson in attendance here if we have any questions. And then also onto our chair of public health and safety. It was recommended that it be a resolution as an ordinance requires some sort of allocated dollar amount to that to be an ordinance, which was not our intention when we went about that. So they have drafted a resolution that will be presented at Public Health and Safety on February 15th for approval. And then if it is approved there, that will go on to City Council for final approval. Is there any questions that we have in regards to the conversion therapy ban passing?
Do you want us to be present at that February 15th date?
You read my mind, Latanya. Yes, if you could be present, that would be fantastic.
At what time is that meeting?
That is a great question.
I think 5:30 or 5:15.
I think it's 5:15 sounds
yeah.
right. So 5:15 p.m.
Okay, I didn't have paper. 5:15 at what date?
On February 15th. It's the third
Okay.
Monday. Yep. And I'll also be sending everyone a reminder too as that date gets a little bit closer.
Okay.
So that would be fantastic. If you can either attend in person or virtually, or if you want to write a letter, that works for us too. So bravo to everyone. We got our first policy down there. So if there isn't any other discussion, we can go ahead and move on to our next agenda item here. Okay. So update and discussion on environmental justice policy. So a draft of this resolution was sent out after our last meeting. So that was sent out on December 3rd for all of us to review and provide some feedback. So given everyone was able to look that document over and was able to look at those attachments from previous meetings, I'd like to open this up for discussion on that resolution.
I didn't see anything that I thought that needed to be changed on there.
Okay. I did dig into a little bit because, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to context and where things kind of come from. So I did look at Evanston, and I'm not too sure if, Tom, you saw this too, but it looks like they're working on an ordinance after the pass of their resolution to kind of do some follow-ups. And it looks like you included that in the resolution here, that would be part of the process. So that's wonderful to see that they are going forward with that down in Evanston and looking at some ordinances to address environmental justice. A couple questions I had looking it over was in the section 2 where it talks for development of ordinances to ensure active consideration for environmental justice and meaningful public participation in city policies, practices, procedures, and other decision making. I was just kind of wondering, when that was drafted, what departments would be responsible for the development of these ordinances, or is that something that would be a recommendation from our committee, or kind of want to look at what we're committing to with this policy?
Would you like me to address that
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Tom, yes, if you could
Yes.
elaborate on that a little bit more, that'd be great.
It's a good question. I think those types of questions, as we kind of talked about with the conversion therapy ban, some of these come up on the fly, and I'd be very open to really what other committee members and colleagues thought and felt on this. One thing in terms of just kind of moving with this moving target is I think that timing's important. So it may be better, as you mentioned with Evanston, they're moving on to ordinances and other more codified, solidified policies. And I think if there would be kind of a choice between delaying to kind of itemize some of these things more in detail, or moving forward in the near future potentially and seeing how these things look as we go, the latter might be preferable in my opinion, simply because it seems like now there are some things in motion with city policy where having an EJ framework in place may benefit the process. But in terms of what this may take in particular, I'd be very open to hearing what other committee members felt. Alternatively, if there is no feeling, I'd certainly weigh in. So, with the sound. Oh, well, with the process, we had talked about kind of how to get the community and stakeholders involved in this process, as well as maybe other relevant committees like the Sustainability Committee. How would the group feel about, today there's nothing, this isn't scheduled for action, but if it was scheduled at the next meeting for some action, would it be possible to have, whether it's kind of a formal or quasi kind of hearing where we would, notify the public that, there'd be input taken, as well as perhaps our partner committee, the Sustainability Committee, to I thought that could maybe do two things. It would allow us to get that relevant input, but it would also kind of make sure the time frame isn't lagging. We could maybe hit those two birds with one stone at the next meeting, and perhaps the public may have some feelings on that.
Yeah, what do we think, members? Any input on that regard?
I think it makes sense. Sounds like a good plan. It'd be like, have you got any feedback at all from the community on where they might, where they're leaning towards, or no?
I have not. Mr. Norfleet's seen a draft and provided some input, but I have not put this out in kind of the public realm in any way yet. We could do that prior to the meeting. I think that would be that's a good thought, LaTanya, about making sure before the next meeting, if we were to get public input, that there was awareness. But I haven't put this out there yet.
Excellent. I'm thinking that definitely hosting a joint meeting between our committee and then also probably, gosh, I'm blanking on what the exact name is, the Sustainable Energy and Environmental Committee. That might be a great thing for us to do for our next meeting, is schedule a joint meeting between the two groups and come to some sort of agreement before we start bringing in the public. But definitely open to that. What do we think?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Definitely get more input then.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think, at that meeting too, we can kind of discuss a little bit more, because I think there are definitely time, Tom, you said completely, timing is of the essence. And I think passing some sort of a resolution rather than holding off and doing an ordinance is definitely would behoove us in the long term, or not in the long term, but in the short term and the long term. But where was I going with this? I am blanking. Oh, here we go. Definitely a synergy between, right now what's happening, but then also I know there's talk about strategic planning possibly, and if we can kind of incorporate some of these themes into the strategic planning into each of the committees, I think that will also help us too. Maybe that's something we can write into the resolution itself. Wonderful. Any other discussion that we have or updates in regards to the environmental justice policy? Well, you guys are just making this way too easy. Such a chatty group. Okay. So then the last item I have for us today, which we're sitting at some pretty decent time, so I'm hoping that we can make some decent headway with this, is discussion and identifying our goals for this year. I definitely think there's some other organizations that have some tasks going on that we can work in tandem and collaboration with. But I just wanted to kind of put this out there to the group is, just discussion right now is there any certain objectives or goals or areas of focus that you'd like to see our group work on going into this year? So pretty broad here, but I'm going to open it up for discussion here if there's any certain areas.
I think it would be important, because I want to say that although the group started a while back, we're still fairly new.
Yep.
And we really just finally solidified our name. If we can go back and visit the purpose of the group,
Of course.
I think that will be beneficial in establishing objectives. I know I'm not the only one on a committee or a task force, and so sometimes the lines, is a little bit blurry to me. It's like, oh, what am I doing today? For which meeting?
Yep, and especially
We can go back and revisit, the purpose of the group so that we can establish objectives to work on. I think that would be beneficial.
it makes 100% sense. So our agreed upon mission statement was to promote an atmosphere that accepts, celebrates, and appreciates diversity within the community by actively identifying areas of discrimination, providing education, communication, and recommendations to City Council and the Mayor of the City of Wausau. So it's a pretty broad mission statement in there.
Yeah.
But really kind of looking at how can we proactively identify areas of discrimination, and then providing education, communication, and recommendations to the City Council and Mayor. And as we discussed in past meetings, we have the policy working to our advantage here. So if there's any areas that are in our community that we want to identify here, that could be potentially areas of focus. And then we can go from there of developing possible policy to help address those concerns or make recommendations on the City Council of other ways to deal with it as well.
I guess my concern that generally people have in their policies that they won't discriminate and that they embrace all diversity. It's generally written in their policies, but I'm not going to say that it's always followed. So, there's a lot of sectors. Are we talking about employment? Are we specifically talking about like city? And what about the city? Like law enforcement?
We are wide open right now, LaTanya. I don't really want to put any narrowing on this. I just kind of a big blanket brainstorming, just throw things my way. I'll write it down, and then what we'll do is I'll type this up into a document so that we can continue this conversation at our next meeting, and we can go ahead and, similar to what we're doing in another one of our groups, LaTanya is going through those, looking for themes and categorizing them. So you mentioned, LaTanya, that you're looking at discrimination policies?
Yes. And maybe like training policies.
Okay.
So especially places that receive, because we only have so much control, right? So maybe places that are receiving funding from the city or the state, actually having a policy and a plan for training on diversity issues.
Training and planning. Excellent.
I'm thinking for a lot of places that provide assistance to like low income, impoverished, people in poverty, and for them being able to receive adequate, services that are the same as they would, for someone who doesn't identify in a diverse population.
Equal assets to services, okay.
And I'm gonna apologize ahead of time. I still feel really terrible. So my mind is a little bit scattered. So y'all just work with me here.
We appreciate you being here, and I'm happy to hear you're on the mend, though, at least.
Yeah.
I'm going to start calling on people, if you don't mind. Brenton is...
Oh.
Yep. Oh,
It's me.
hey, Carmen.
I just, as a general thing, I think something that we could work on with our committee and city government, and is a lot of people care about what we're doing, but it's not super visible at this point. So a focus can be like, do we need to have roundtable discussions? Do we need to have a better online presence? I mean, things are hopefully starting to open up a little bit more here. So how can we be present in the community so we can more easily identify areas that need to be worked on? And hopefully people will then, I mean, if people can come to us with problems that they're seeing in the community, because obviously we're just a few people, we can't be everywhere. But there are things that I even say, on Facebook, and all of a sudden there's 45 people weighing in on things like Thomas Street, but they're not at a committee meeting. So how do we get those people involved in what we're doing? I don't know the answer to that, but...
No, I think that's extremely valid, and I think that's ongoing theme is, how can we get more public engagement and get people engaged in the process? Yeah, I love that a lot. So communication, public open houses, roundtables. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, even if we're able to set up a table, if things like Wausau area events are having events and stuff, if they're having 400 block show or outdoor things where people are starting to be out and about more, if we can be present at something like that, just the community knows that we're here. That could be an idea. I know that that stuff is kind of up in the air still, but that's just an idea from me.
Hey, we love ideas.
We could get shirts.
And that just sparked me too, is that, us being a new group here, but I think, as soon as we start getting some more policy passed out, I think that press releases are going to be a good thing for us, so we can spread the word. Wonderful. Tom?
Thanks, Blake. I think building on what Carmen and LaTanya said, those were some issues I thought were important too, and they hit them well. On the idea of kind of the visibility and getting the committee more involved in some of these issues, and Carmen had mentioned like Thomas Street, for example. If the committee talks about kind of principles or even policy matters that are important, would it be possible, kind of what we're doing for the conversion ban issue, like you mentioned, it might be helpful to have people attend these meetings. Could the committee do that more, where if we know that there are issues with equity or equality or protections and participation, we make sure that there's kind of committee members at a meeting or a liaison from the committee that can kind of speak to the issue, like we've talked about this and these are objectives and principles we have, and this is how we see them applying to an issue. So maybe the committee could play a heavier advisory role at these council meetings and so forth.
Yeah, so having more
Good idea.
more of our committee, like an actual participation, more involvement, to kind of help be more of that liaison. Is that kind of what? Yeah. Okay.
It might be good to have our committee as kind of piggybacking off of what Tom said, but it's kind of like the hub for all the other committees, you know, one-stop shop of, okay, well, we got this going on, just letting you know, and we have like a mailing list, or, you know what I mean, to get the word out. Maybe our committee can play that role.
More on the communication end of things, a mailing list, I like that too.
Yeah, I mean, because like the UU Church, I just found out today the UU Church is doing something on the 18th, I think it is, for MLK Day. They're doing a film presentation on the movie The 13th Amendment. But I just found that out today, and I don't know, you know, how long it's been in the works. But if we have a place that can actually get all this stuff out, I mean, I think that would be helpful, because there's a lot of people in the community doing the work, but not everybody know, like Carmen was saying, you know, what's really going on.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's also, you know, Carmen also touched on something here, is that, you know, each of us having a position on this committee, I think it's important for us and for the community to know that they can contact us and we can take their concerns on to our committee and have some actual real action here too. So that might be an option too.
And with being a presence in the community, like, I know that this is still a new committee, but I'm sure that many people don't even know it exists. And I feel like when I first joined, we did talk a little bit about a social presence, you know, like an account or something like that. And then that kind of, I kind of decided that I think there's already enough accounts somewhere else or whatever, and we're not going to like work with that right now. But if we are talking about being more of sort of a hub or a place where other communities can come to when they're trying to set or figure out their own policies, when it comes to being inclusive, then I think it might be a good idea to have our own place where people can go to and ask questions, and that would also help us to promote those events, like what Tanya was saying at the church, where they're going to be playing this movie. These are educational types of things already happening in our community, and if we can also help promote those, then I think it would be a good idea.
Okay. So we can revisit the social media, and we can also examine and identify other options for us for spreading the word about
Right,
things.
social media is not the only way. I'm just saying that there's some way that we can kind of, you know, tell people in the community, hey, we're here, and then we can sort of get this feedback and also put it out there too.
It's fantastic. Okay, so far we have just, you know, venturing and exploring some more policies that relate to discrimination, more training and planning policies, especially to businesses and organizations that receive state and city funding. We'll have to look into that a little bit more, obviously, but assistance to, equal access to services. It's actually, Tom, there's a lot that you covered with the resolution that I'm thinking that there's a lot of synergy between what we're talking about and what you have drafted in the environmental justice resolution. Communication, another one that's addressed there in that resolution, but public communication, public open houses, roundtables, community presence, press releases, a mailing list to just get news out there. Also revisiting social media or other options we can look at to help spread the word. Being more of a hub for the advisory in like the city area. And then we talked about visibility and involvement as well. Anything that I didn't include in there that we'd like to be included? Bueller? No, excellent, wonderful. I think this is a great list. So going forward, what I'll do is I'll type this up for us, and then, you know, I think we already see that there are some common themes in here about public engagement, communication, and then looking into more policies as they pertain to training and discrimination. But I'll type this up, and then we can go ahead and further explore those in our next meeting. If you are able to attend in person, I think that we'll have a little bit of a little exercise, but I'll kind of brainstorm to see if there's a way that we can do this virtually too. Because I think, yeah, we'll definitely be virtual here for a little bit longer. But going forward, we'll go ahead and solidify those a little bit more, so we have kind of a plan going into our year. Of course, with everything, we have to have some flexibility, so we can pick things up as we need to, if it is of immediate concern or needs to be addressed, and time is of the essence. We blew through our agenda relatively fast today. I know that we don't have another other section, but, Ann, do you mind if I ask you, come on up, and a quick question? I know that Ann and I briefly discussed that our committee currently, we need to report to a committee, and if you would just be able to kind of give us a little refresher on that, Ann, if you would be so kind.
Thanks, Blake. I didn't bring the resolution down with me, but under our formal council rules, which are codified in the ordinances, your committee is what is referred to as a special committee that is created under the authority of the council. The council creates you for a purpose in an authorizing resolution. And then it's just been my general advice that over time you might want to report on your activities to the council in the form of either a written report, or somebody can and just put it on file, or somebody can come and make a oral presentation at the beginning of a council meeting. There's an agenda item for committee reports. I don't recall that this resolution required any certain periodic reports. But certainly to LaTanya's comments, and I thought they were all very good comments too. We can go back and send them a copy of the resolution that authorized the existence of this committee, even though the name has changed. That might also help you focus on where you want to go. I know originally they wanted the community to be more welcoming and inclusive, to welcome more people into the community, but certainly your focus could be on, you know, training and access to programs, and how the city in and of itself, through its elected officials and its employees, can be more welcoming and inclusive and diverse. Like you said, it's such a broad area, you could exist forever and never run out of good topics to explore. So looks like a good list to me. But yes, you are a special committee that's been created as an advisory committee to report to the council. And I don't know, Mayor, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do they make their recommendations through public health and safety, or is it just depends on the topic?
Yeah, I think it depends on the topic. We can funnel it to wherever we need to.
Perfect.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Provide a little extra context for everyone.
And to that regard, Katie, you know, where do you see, where is your vision for the committee and what we're doing?
I guess for me, when I think about this committee and when I think about experiences with other similar committees, what I want is for this group to come up with maybe those guiding principles. I think that's the important part, so that they can be injected into what we're doing in other places. I don't want it to be separate from what we're doing. It should be really embedded. So, you know, maybe this is even an opportunity where committee members can give presentations to, you know, various committees where you can talk through, like, hey, this is what the kind of thing we'd like to see. This is how we'd like you to consider these policies that are more inclusive or equitable or whatever. You know, weighing in, using this voice is a really, I think it'd be a really strong voice. Since we specifically said we care about this, we should share why we care and how they can also show they care making policy.
So maybe another thing that we could add to that list, Blake, is maybe when there are policies that come to the city council, maybe we can review it and kind of look at it through a multicultural lens and see if we have any recommendations, you know, for change or not, or, you know, maybe that's something that we can do too, and that kind of gets us more familiar and also creates, I think, a better partnership with our committee and the city council.
Yeah.
I think too, you know, as we move forward and we're starting our strategic planning, I would definitely want this group to be a part of that. That was one of the things that I thought was missed when the county went through it the last time, was that, you know, diversity wasn't a part of their strategic plan. And that's not to say you can't include it anyway, but I think having it front and center is much more impactful, and everybody agrees on it then.
Excellent. So it definitely seems like we need to add the education component into our workflow, our potential work plans for next year, or for next year. Oh my gosh, this year, y'all. And putting together a formal presentation so we can get around to our other committees here too. So I will put that on the list so we can further discuss that at our next meeting. All right. Any other comment for today? For the good of the order? All right. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Tom has motioned. A second? From Brenton. Fantastic. Thank you all again for joining us. As I mentioned, I will be here in person, so if you'd like to attend, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, we will also have that WebEx linked going into the future. And then marking our calendars, our next meeting is 3 weeks from now. Let's see. February 1st, does that sound right to you? Okay. Okay. February 1st it is. And we'll send you those reminders here as well. And I will personally be sending you a reminder before the conversion therapy ban goes on to public health and safety, so everyone has advance notice on that as well. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys again. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.